I just wanted to kick off today's webinar with a brief overview of how we plan to use this 1.5 hours. So the webinar today is not just about showing you all the tool. Evidensia is live. It's a public tool. You all can all go away and type www.evidensia.eco on your laptops and explore it. So showing you the platform is just one part of it. What we really wanted to do today was have a conversation and dialogue with all of you as community practitioners on how we can explore and exploit the potential of Evidensia to support our work with our stakeholder groups. So how can we use the platform and its content when we work with businesses to influence their sourcing decisions? How can we work with the platform to actually influence governments, national or local, whom we work with? How can we use it as practitioners to help with program design and so on? So this hopes to be a very interactive session. So this is how we've planned it. The first half of the webinar, roughly for the next 40 minutes, will be an opportunity for me to give you some information about the project, about the larger vision behind the platform, and then to really take you all on a detailed walkthrough of the site. The site is best explored on your own, so I'm not going to go into every single detail and feature, but I would like to share with you all some key highlights so that you can appreciate at least what the objective of the features is. We'll then take a 2-3 minute comfort break. And in that comfort break, we're giving Matthias full power to then split us up into 3 virtual groups. We're going to be going into 3 groups to participate in group discussions. And in those groups for the next 40 minutes, we're going to be talking about this question. How can we exploit the potential of Evidensia to influence key stakeholder groups? We will be splitting into 3 groups. One group will look at using Evidensia to influence business sourcing and decision making, the second to influence government policy making, and the third to work with practitioners to influence program design. And I will be joined by 2 other colleagues, Tiba Fazeli and Rita Mendez, who will join me as your virtual facilitators for that group discussion. And we should finish off with a brief 5 minutes in plenary where we can hear back some of the main ideas that came from the group discussion and basically close. I do hope that the format gives you all the opportunity to really engage with us in this vision of how do we make Evidensia work for the community, right? So that's the spirit in which today's webinar is being conducted. But as and when you have questions, please feel free to use the question box. And if I'm not able to get to them during the course of the presentation, we can bring it up in the groups. But if not, I can always get back to you virtually as well. So with that introduction, Matthias, could I request you to move on to the next slide, please? Okay, so we're here today to talk about Evidensia. Evidensia is a new knowledge management platform, which, as I said, has been launched as part of the Good Growth Partnership and the ANL project. The site was officially launched this June, so it's been live for about 5 months. But there have been a few features of the site that were still under construction. And it's only at the end of November that we launched the site with all of its features. So this is great timing to actually be bringing the platform to all of you because it's complete and we're very happy to now bring the full range of features. One exciting statistic from when it was launched in June, Evidensia has already had above 4,500 users. I'm not a whiz at these things, but people tell me that's a pretty good number for a site that's been alive for about 4-5 months. We only hope the sort of visitors go up, but the challenge is not simply to be chasing a number, such as number of visitors, but to get people to engage with the content. Evidensia's founding partners are ICL, Rainforest Alliance, and WWF. And of course, we have a very, very strong link with UNDP as well, being a part of the ANL project. Next, please. So I don't expect you all to read everything on the slide, but why am I showing it? I'm showing it because Evidensia for us is not just a platform. It's not just a tool. We're very, very interested in the long term vision. And if you can look at the top left corner of your screen, which is where we're saying project impact, the real long term vision we're working towards is that credible research and evidence about the impacts and effectiveness of sustainability tools really starts becoming relevant to how businesses are taking decisions, governments are taking decisions, how we're designing our programs. So the long term vision is that people work with evidence, they use evidence in how they're actually taking their decisions, in how they are learning. Evidencia is a tool that can help us along that journey. And the way its features and functionalities have been set up, we hope it makes the use of evidence really user friendly. But it's not just about the tool and it's not just about the content. It's about creating the space for dialogue about evidence, what we're learning, what works, what doesn't work, why, how, and so on. So I want the community to be aware that this is not a tool which, with an amount of seed funding that's here today and going to disappear tomorrow. We're all invested in Evidencia for the long run, and that's because we believe that this is a very useful vision to have, which is the platform as a means to an end of actually embedding evidence into the way we think and the way we behave and the way we practice sustainability. Next, please. So, what is the scope of the platform? When we say sustainability, it means so many different things. We have to draw the boundaries of the platform somewhere. And the first year of the project, so all of our GGP projects probably started between April and June 2017. So the first year of this Evidencia project was spent in scoping. And at that stage, we said this is a platform that's essentially about the impacts and effectiveness of market based sustainability approaches. And by market based sustainability approaches, we mean this whole range of 11 different sort of approaches that you see on your screen here. Everything from bans and moratoria to the very, very popular jurisdictional approaches today, specific supply chain investment programs, specific national plans or platforms. We know many of you are working on those. Sustainable sourcing codes, and also standards and certification. So it's quite an expansive platform with regard to the sorts of tools and approaches that we actually focus on and that we're interested in having evidence on. Next, please. So we believe that Evidencia has 4 unique offerings, right? The first is the site itself being a place that enables the use of evidence in a fun, in an interactive, in an easy way. And when we come to the walkthrough, I will show you all why we have designed certain features so that it actually makes the use and uptake of evidence easy. The second broader goal and offering of Evidencia is that it highlights where evidence is available, but also highlights gaps. Now, the focus on gaps is critical because we don't know how we're doing if nobody has researched it or we ourselves have not bothered to, evaluate the impact. So in our field, this is a very dynamic field of work. There are new tools and approaches coming up, very frequently. It is very important to know transparently what are the true knowledge gaps. Do we really know what's happening in the Cerrado? Do we really know what's happening in the key deforestation belts? Has someone actually evaluated the impacts, or basically is this a complete collective knowledge gap? So one of the unique features that we have built, which I will show you, is designed specifically to highlight where evidence is available. How much of evidence is available? Are we talking 2 studies, 20 studies, or 200 studies? And where there are gaps. The third offering is, and this is towards this vision of, working with evidence, is wouldn't it be wonderful if we all had a common knowledge base that we were working off? If we as practitioners had a collective understanding of the strengths and weaknesses of different tools, if we were able to work with businesses where they don't push back and say, hey, you don't have any evidence, but actually they see the evidence that we have and they also understand that, okay, research is telling us that these are strengths and these are limitations. So We cannot achieve this today, but we certainly hope that if we get the sort of engagement with Evidencia and with its content, we can truly become a community of practice that's working off a common knowledge base. And then working together with that knowledge base to come up with innovations, solutions, collaborations, partnerships, etc. And finally, I would say that the site and the way we are thinking of content is not just to upload it with research reports. Yes, research is fundamental. Everybody likes independent research to verify and validate impacts, but we're also hoping to bring research together on key topics, hot topics, key issues of interest, by inviting researchers to write analyses, contribute insights, and so on. So our content strategy for the site is not just to find research reports and upload it and make Evidencia a library, but it's actually to keep the conversation about what that evidence is telling us going. So there's a lot of emphasis we're going to be giving in 2020 to actually inviting people to write on key topics of interest by reviewing the evidence base. Next, please. So before we go into the walkthrough, I wanted to also share with you all some very, very specific opportunities that we see for this community with Evidencia. Now, where has this list come from? This list has come from many conversations we've been having with UNDP, with WWF over the last year. So this is one collection of ideas. I hope today's webinar comes up with many, many more ideas on how Evidencia could prove to be useful for this community. So what are some of the ideas that have already come forth? On a practical level, it's great to have everything in one place. And we hope, along with the GGP website, that Evidencia is that place where we have all of our knowledge and learning resources. It's an opportunity to convert research into engaging products. So once we go onto the site, you all will see we're focusing not just on research reports, but webinars, podcasts, blogs, other ways by which we can make research engaging, get people to engage with the insights rather, even if they don't have time to read the report. So there's an opportunity to do that. The platform is capable of hosting multiple formats. Then there's the collective knowledge base, the point that I already made. What are our key topics of interest? What are our key countries of interest? Can we develop a collective knowledge base on that? Then there's the specific analysis and insights, also the point that I mentioned. Then there's a very, very clear opportunity here that the community of practice and Evidencia really work as two vehicles, with Evidencia being the platform and the community being the space where we discuss and deliberate. So if we get this right, we have an opportunity to actually use both these vehicles to really get this learning community going. And the infrastructure is all there. So what it involves is the community being invested in using Evidencia and its knowledge, and Evidencia contributing relevant insights and analysis into the community and its discussions. So that would be a great synergy to find. And finally, if more budgets become available. So at this stage, we have built the platform out. This is version 1.0. This is, what we've had the budgets to do. But if there is interest and if there's more budgets available, there are many, many ideas coming in on how we can enhance the features of the platform. And as I walk you all through the platform, I'll share some of those ideas as well. Next, please. So this diagram very simply tries to depict this vision that I was articulating about how Evidencia and the community of practice can actually speak to each other. So if Evidencia can be an effective internal knowledge management and dissemination hub, it feeds that internal knowledge into the community of practice, which can then discuss the insights, debate the insights, deliberate the insights, add, with practitioner knowledge and so on, and then feed all that back to Evidencia, which can disseminate it to our external stakeholders. So if we get this virtuous cycle almost working, then it could be a real opportunity to make this learning community a thriving one. Next, please. Okay, so if you can go back to the previous slide, Matthias, and I'll jump into the site right now. Okay, so with that brief background, I'd now like to dive straight into the site and start showing you all the site's features. So Matthias, just looking to see if I can be made the presenter.
Sure, you can do it yourself, Vijaya. There's a
Okay,
button on the bottom there it says share. You click on it and you
right.
share your screen.
Okay, okay. So let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So here we go. Welcome to Evidencia, www.evidensia.eco. Uh, there's a lot that I can say about the site, but I'm going to try and make this an engaging walkthrough and try and think of different scenarios. Do you have a query, and then how can you actually use the site? So there's two ways you can go about Evidencia. Either you know exactly what you're looking for, you know the exact topic, the exact kind of report you're looking for, the exact country, in which case intuitively the first thing to do would be to just go and use the search engine and basically go straight to the online library, right? So that's the first way you can use Evidencia, which is if you know exactly what you're looking for, go straight to the search engine, and then Evidencia will pull out whatever we have, which is specific to your search. If this is what you're looking for and you're happy with the results, you can export your results through a CSV file. You can further filter down your results through a whole range of tools. And I'll talk you through these. You can see, is the report available as a report? In this case, you're interested in gender. This report is actually available as a podcast, as a webinar, and as a blog. So I have 20 minutes, so I'll listen to the podcast, or I actually have 1 hour, I wouldn't mind reading the research report. So one feature about the online library that we have been quite conscious to build in is make it easy for users to appreciate where evidence is available in multiple formats, so that depending on their time and depending on their attention span, they can actually choose to engage with that evidence in whatever format they wish to. So, for instance, if you decide that you want to listen to this podcast, you click on that, you can directly listen to the podcast. Evidencia is extremely phone friendly. So, it's a website that has been built to accommodate all screen sizes. So, you can be listening to this podcast on your way into work or your way back home. But of course, you can also then look at what else is available in this series. So this page tells you that there's this podcast. This podcast draws from this report, but also then that there's a whole other interesting set of research associated in the same series, right? So that's one way you can get around Evidencia, by knowing exactly what you're looking for. But the other thing that you may be interested in is what's out there, right? I want to explore what evidence there is on, let's say, smallholder livelihoods, or I want to explore what evidence there is on a particular SDG. And that is also a very, very useful query, because you're not going with a specific question or a specific topic of interest, but you're actually interested in understanding the evidence base. So what we have built on the home page is this really fun carousel. So basically, the thing with evidence is that there's no single platform or website that can meet everybody's evidence needs, because everybody wants something different. Some people want data, some people want stats, some people want webinars, some people want independent reports. Some people, will be able to give it 10 minutes, some people will be able to give it 30. So the best way to actually dive into Evidencia is based on your topic of interest or the way you want to cut the pie. So for instance, if your lens is SDGs, so your company is reporting on its sustainability report against the SDGs, or your government or a stakeholder you're working with is interested in SDGs, you can use the SDG lens here and go straight and click on the SDG of interest to you. and you will be taken to a pre-filtered list of all relevant material relevant to that SDG that's available on Evidensia. Every single resource on Evidensia is coded by SDG, which means that hopefully over time, Evidensia also becomes a really rich material of all the reports in our community and learning products that can tell us about how we're doing against the SDGs. So suppose what you're interested in is very basic stuff, I'm interested in environmental impact. So suppose you're working with a stakeholder who doesn't have a very sophisticated understanding of sustainability, and they're like social, environmental, economic, I understand that. You can dive in that way as well. Suppose you're interested in issues, so you're working with a government which has very, very clear development priorities. You can dive into Evidensia from that angle and actually go through the list of issues. And likewise, you will be taken to a pre-filtered selection of everything that's relevant on the online library. You can do the same thing for tools and approaches. So you can go straight to jurisdictional approaches and see what we have. We don't have a lot, and that's something to be worked on, but at least you can get to what there is pretty quickly and easily. One other advantage about Evidensia is the categorization on type of evidence. And I'm going to spend 2 minutes explaining this to y'all. Why is it important to have a categorization of evidence? Now, what evidence means differs to different people. So for some people, an independent research report with an article published in like a leading journal is good quality evidence. Whereas for somebody else, an internal performance monitoring report from, let's say, RSPO could be really good evidence. So what we all mean by rigorous evidence, it differs. It differs based on our appetite for rigor. It differs based on our exposure to science. So Evidensia doesn't claim to be a site that's exclusive to only the best of the best, because we believe that there is value from every type of evidence. But what's important is that evidence is categorized so that the user is very, very clearly made aware of what type of a resource they're looking at. So all of Evidensia's resources are actually categorized using an evidence typology, which you can access by going to our approach and methodology page and by downloading this PDF. The evidence typology is like the blueprint that tells you why is a certain report categorized as an empirical study, or why is this called a performance monitoring sort of report. And it's the blueprint that we use to actually code all the material that we get onto the site. So, depending on your appetite for evidence, if you're interested only in empirical studies, you can go and click on this and you'll get just empirical studies on your results page. But if you are willing to permit other forms of evidence, you may say, I'm interested in empirical studies, but I'm also interested in monitoring reports. And then, of course, a larger spectrum of results will show up. So that's one very important feature, and a feature that distinguishes Evidensia from other libraries and other repositories. So that's one main message I wanted to send across to everybody today, which is that um, there are many, many different ways you can dive into the evidence base. We've tried very much to make the site intuitive so that depending on what your angle of interest is, you can actually dive into the site and start your journey from there. Once you're in the online library, you can filter results by a whole range of filters, from publication range to approaches and tools, issues and outcomes. We even have specific themes, such as if people are interested in audits and assurance. Now, audits is not really a sustainability issue. It's not like deforestation, but we do know that there are many people who are very specifically interested in audits. So gender, likewise, indigenous peoples, and so on. You can filter by regions and geographies, either broad regions and geographies or specific countries. You can filter by sectors and products. This is a very, very expansive list. We've tried to mirror with the UN's list and individual sectors under that. And again, finally, by evidence type. With that introduction and exposure to the online library, let's now go into the three other key interactive features of Evidensia. So Evidensia has three other key interactive features which all sit under this top menu of work with evidence, because they've been built to help practitioners actually work with evidence. I'm going to start off with the first of these, which is the knowledge matrix. So in my introduction, I said that one of the key values of Evidensia is it allows you to appreciate where there is evidence and where there are gaps. And the knowledge matrix has been built to do precisely that. This is nothing but a matrix that plots available evidence in two manners. The first matrix plots issues and outcomes against sectors, as you can see here. And you can open up a sector to look at products. You can open up an issue to look at subtopics under it. And the second plots issues and outcomes against sustainability approaches. So you can actually compare on a topic such as forests and other ecosystems, how much evidence do we actually have when we look at the whole range of different sustainability approaches out there. So the merits of the knowledge matrix are that it allows you to compare the relative amount of evidence that's available across sectors, across tools, across approaches, across issues, but also that it allows us to actually appreciate where the research community has systematically assessed evidence and where it hasn't. And that's where you will see this blue lens icon. Wherever you see a blue lens on a number, that means we have a very, very high degree of confidence in that number, because the research community has actually systematically mapped the evidence availability at that intersection. Then again, in the knowledge matrix, you can click on any cell and go straight to the online library for the relevant results from your selection. You can also look at systematic evidence mapping reports which are available and appreciate, how the systematic evidence mapping has been done. But the real merit of this tool is to be able to focus on evidence availability and evidence gaps. Many a time, stakeholders we work with think that there is evidence available on things, but actually there isn't. And so Evidensia can be a really transparent way of exposing genuine knowledge gaps as well. On each of our features, there's this little link which will open up a video tour, which is about 5 minutes that you all can view. And it's a really it's an easy guide to how you can engage with the tools. Let's now go to the geographic map, which is the next interactive tool. So all of us know that sustainability issues and sustainability work is pretty geo-specific. There are many hotspots in the world that we're interested in. Most companies have very specific geo-sourcing, geo-sourcing priorities. So the geographic map plots the same evidence as the knowledge matrix, but it does so geographically. So it allows you to actually see where studies have taken place that are looking at the impacts and effectiveness of market-based tools and where they aren't. You can filter studies again through a whole range of filters: sector, product, approach, tool, and you can further narrow down your selection. So for instance, if you were interested in coffee, you go straight to coffee and the map will update itself. You can then zoom into the map and start looking at where these studies have been. You can click on any individual study to basically see what the focus of that study is, what the research question is, who the authors are, and likewise click on that link to go straight and access that study, right? So the power of the GeoMap is that it has a very, very high degree of zooming capabilities. So we are able to plot studies which are even site specific. So if someone has done a study on 10 villages, then we can plot that study on this map pretty easily. But we can also plot studies at the level of country, right? So that's the difference in the colors of these pins. So when a pin is blue, it means it's specific to the study site. When a pin is orange in color, it means the study has focused on an entire region. And when a pin is yellow in color, it means that it has actually focused on an entire country. One interesting feature about the GeoMap is that we've tried to analytically add some value by adding these context layers. So, it may not be that interesting to just see, okay, where in the world have people done studies on coffee, but it might be really interesting to see, okay, are there any studies on coffee that have been done, let's say, in the world's deforestation hotspots? So then you can add this context layer, which is the Hansen Global Tree Cover Loss Map, which is the most well regarded map on showing us, sort of tree cover loss. And then the data starts to make a lot more sense. So let's say, for instance, you are focused on deforestation hotspots in Indonesia. You really zoom in and say, okay, in this deforestation hotspot, these are the sorts of studies that have actually sort of taken place. What's the study about? The study is about palm oil, etc., etc. So at the point of launch, we have 4 such context maps that we have added to the GeoMap feature. The tree cover loss. Then there is one on the priority ecoregions of the world, which is a WWF map on marine and terrestrial priority ecosystems. Then we have a context map on water stress. And finally, a context map on the World Bank country income classification based on GDP. Finally, I wanted to show you all the last feature of Evidensia, which is the visual summaries. One key question that we were always asked when we were developing the site is, people are not just interested in how much evidence there is, but they want to know what the evidence says. Is there an easy way by which we can actually give people an engaging, simple summary of what the bulk of the research is telling us? Are the results positive, negative, or inconclusive? So the visual summaries is Evidensia's attempt at actually trying to simplify the results from large systematic review exercises and present it in this simple and engaging manner. The visual summaries, unlike the GeoMap and knowledge matrix, do not present all available evidence, because when you're talking about results, you do need to focus on studies that are strong in design. So the visual summaries works with only that subset of evidence which is statistically rigorous and where we have a very high degree of confidence that the results are actually attributable, so very strong research designs. The visual summaries basically are um, fueled by these systematic reviews that we do. So up until now, we have undertaken these systematic reviews on 2 questions: conservation impacts and the effects of VSS and other tools on yield, price, costs, and income in the agriculture sector. This year, we are focusing on a 3rd systematic review, which is looking at the use of pesticide, fertilizers, and agricultural inputs. There's going to be even more work that we do on systematic reviews on key topics going forward. And every time we do a systematic review, each result that we get from that is plotted on this table. So at a glance, you're able to see whether across a specific review, the statistical results are positive, negative, or inconclusive, right? So it gives you a really good overview of what it says. You can break issues down into further topics. So for instance, on a topic like costs of inputs in agriculture or something like yield, you can see that there is a large amount of research. A chunk of that research does say that the results are fairly positive. That is, market-based sustainability tools like standards and others do help increase the yield for certified farmers. But there are many, many results which are inconclusive, basically where they say there's actually not that much difference. So the tool is actually a useful way of letting users know what the most robust evidence is actually telling us about the impacts and effectiveness of these different tools. The real value of the visual summaries is the more we do these summaries, the more reviews we do, the more data we will start getting on each of these issues, and then start developing a pretty comprehensive picture of the effectiveness of different tools and approaches. So I have just 2 more minutes in which I'm going to just highlight a few other things to you all about the platform. Um, In addition to these interactive features, we also have issue landing pages. So if you are interested in an issue, you can very easily just go onto the landing page of that issue and get a sense. Hang on, let me move this somewhere. And get a sense of the issue. So that's one way, you can direct people who are interested in issues as well. um, Everything you want to know about our approach, about the site, about how we choose studies, about how we code is available on Evidensia's approach and methodology page. And we would encourage you all to read this. And if you still have questions or have any ideas on how we can improve, to kind of write to us. And finally, to say that next week we are launching the Evidencia newsletter. The Evidencia newsletter is going to be a once in 2 month, regular newsletter that we send out with the latest impacts research. From the site, including latest blogs, articles, new research that's done, exciting insights, and so on. So I would encourage you all, if you all are interested in keeping updated, to sign up to the newsletter by following the link on the site. So that's a very sort of brief overview. There's a lot more that I can say, but at this point, I think what we're interested in is getting y'all engaged enough to actually have a conversation with you. If this is what Evidencia looks like and it has to offer, how can we make the most of this opportunity? So, Matthias, I'm going to stop the walkthrough there and hand over back to you for screen share. And if you can put up the first discussion question, but I think we wanted to take a sort of 2 minute break so that people can have a bit of a comfort break before we come into the discussion. But maybe I can introduce the discussion and then people can go on the break. Yeah?
Yeah, sure. I'm sharing my screen in a minute.
Great. So thank you for patiently listening to me while I offered that walkthrough. As I said, the real, opportunities for you all to engage in your own time. But we wanted to use the second half of this webinar to really dig into this question. How can we use Evidencia in our work with different stakeholders to improve access to and use of evidence? I propose that we now take a 2 minute break. Please stretch, do your favorite yoga poses, get a drink of water, coffee, whatever works for you. But come back within 2 minutes, please. And in the meantime, Matthias is going to sort us into 3 virtual groups, into which we're going into then the group discussions. So thank you. Please don't sign off, but please come back in 2 minutes time to keep the conversation going.
Okay, everybody, I'll open up the groups, the rooms. You're gonna see a notification on your screen. You need to click on accept so you can join the group.
Okay, thanks, Matthias.
There we go.
to stakeholder groups within the community. So, you know, there's taking advantage of current events and, you know, launch events, whether it's you know, a webinar or a in-person event, really being sure to, you know, if you're launching a report, you could point to Evidensia in a way of these are other similar reports that that are similar to what you're launching as well. I guess that's just to say that really using the content to drive people to the site rather than looking at it more broadly. Also, if there was a, you know, a content-led communications or marketing plan, so for example, saying that in the first quarter of next year we'd be focused on SDG 3, you know, that's also a cohesive way to bring people together and drive them to the site, again through the content rather than the site more broadly.
Great. Thanks a ton, Tiba. Rita, shall
Yeah.
we go on to you?
Yeah.
Key
So
ideas and thoughts.
yeah, for us it was a bit short on time as well, but it was interesting. So we focus on the influencing sustainability policy making by national and local governments. We first talk about the relevance of having a strong business cases and statistics from the most credible evidence to reach this stakeholder group. So good research, high credibility, so policy can be substantiated with research. I think we all agreed that the learning from other experiences from a similar context was very important. And in this framework, the geomap was raised as something very important because then you can find similar cases with a very similar context where you can apply it to your own one. We had an interesting discussion about formats because we first talk about the relevance of reports, kind of the traditional way of government policy making, but then we also talk about, well, there's also these new formats that can serve and in because of time issues, it's currently important that we have these on our hands. And we also had this discussion about whether maybe within the same stakeholder groups, some users will use one format, which is more maybe deep dive into the research, and then use the more visual side to sell the idea to their, for example, bosses in the same council or ministry. So yeah, I think it was interesting to explore these formats, and definitely something they saw value in Evidensia. And then also it was raised that Evidensia could be a place to connect researchers or science with policymaking. So a good tie for both. And just on the opportunities and challenges. So in my group, we focus more into opportunities and challenges for this particular stakeholder group, so more for policymaking. And we were talking about 2020 as the year of the big commitments, right, by big companies and governments. So how it's going to be a very key year for that, and for reflecting on what we have achieved and what we haven't, and how Evidensia can play a role in that, positioning the platform as the place to go and explore what works, what hasn't worked, and how we can move forward after these big commitments of 2020. So I think I
That's
will
a
leave
nice,
it there.
ambitious target.
Yeah.
Can we be the answer to what's worked within 2020 and what's going to, move the needle up until
Yeah.
2025? Thanks so much, Rita. So we're short on time, so I'm going to keep this very brief. We were a small group that was looking at how we can make the most of Evidensia as practitioners. I think within the group, a lot of people felt that as practitioners, it would be nice to actually identify ways by which you can get business staff or government staff to actually engage with the platform. So kind of have these personas where we take people on a journey and take them on a journey through the site. So is your question a sourcing question? Is your question a regional development question? And how can you use the site for that? There was an interesting conversation about, if you take HCV, so we had Ellen from HCV network in our group, and I was saying, HCV, has been around for 20 plus years, and if we were to actually say what evidence is there on its effectiveness and its impacts, how can the network actually use Evidensia? So one is, of course, to have access to all research about the network, but then a question of but then, as Nadia was saying, we really want to also see how Evidensia can help with methodological learning. Can we get better at measuring impacts, which is very, very tricky? And what is the offering of Evidensia in that sense, to help the learning community actually learn how to measure, right? So all interesting ideas. I guess in the time that we have left, I know we have about 10 minutes left, but I wanted to open up again this question of specific opportunities in 2020 that we see to take Evidensia to specific events. Are you all aware of any, calendar? I think UNDP puts together a, calendar of key events for the community, but any ideas off the top of your head on where we must go with this platform, where there's a good collection of businesses or good collection of policymakers, so we can pitch the use of the tool? If I can just crowdsource, any ideas?
Well, the point I was making, Vidya, in our group, was that we've all got things we're going to launch next year, knowledge products of one sort or another. And as part of that, and in fact, it'll be a very valuable part of it, not just because we wish to give Evidensia a plug, it's good to place whatever it is we're launching in the context of the other research. So if you think about the visual guides, we're creating hopefully another dark green blob, no, dark green square on that guide. So I can think you could actually have 2 or 3 standard PowerPoint slides set up as a format, which we could include in our own presentations as we're launching, for example, in our case, a private sector working with governments report, where rather than just saying, here are some other reports, almost actively saying, okay, we asked Evidensia to come up with what they've got on this topic. So you have an Evidensia logo and the visual guide, or whatever is the appropriate framework to put it in. And then the titles of the reports come up on the screen. So we were sort of appearing to use Evidensia live in the session to find the context in which our report's going to fit. So that was point number one. And point number two was the idea that came up that Tiba reported on, of maybe having some sort of forward-looking thing of research that's on its way. You know, we all know when we've got research on the stocks and it's not quite finished yet. I think it might be worth looking into whether people can nominate themselves through Evidensia as being part of the review process. So that would be an active way. You know, we're always looking for stakeholders to review the stuff that we've done, aren't we, before we publish it finally. Commonly, what I do in GCP now is say we're going to put a draft report out and then we'll have the final report in 6 months' time when we've had some response to it. But it'd be much better to organise that and have a broader group of stakeholders who could nominate themselves through Evidensia. So that would get them involved as well.
Yes, I think the second idea indeed could be very exciting for researchers because they're always keen to engage with, you know, new and fresh knowledge in our world. I think it's about getting organized, Simon. You know, how can we exploit the platform to make it really an engagement space rather than just an information sharing space? But thanks very much for those ideas. I mean, anything else that's coming up in people's minds as to specific opportunities to pursue in 2020 so that we can weave that into our work plan? Well, you know how to reach us if there are any new ideas that do come in. So before we sort of close down, I just wanted to firstly say thank you very much. It's 1.5 hours in a working day is a lot of time, and I do hope we've been able to make the session useful and productive for you. I hope you know, you've not just learned about the site, but get excited about its prospects. Please reach out to us. We can leave our email IDs in the generic Evidensia email ID in the chat box. So I'm just typing it out here. There's evidencia@iclalliance.org that you can write to. Maybe if we can also put the link to the newsletter in there. The newsletter is going to start going out this month and then every second month from then on. A nice way to stay updated about what's coming out, not just from within the community, but also from outside. For those of you who are active participants in the committee calls, we're going to start making better use of our monthly meetings. So hopefully, you know, you get some top line feeds through that. But finally, just to say, please stay engaged. Keep in touch with us. Now that you know something like that exists, we hope we can you know, build the partnerships to strengthen it. So Matthias, over to you. That was from our side.
Thank you, Vidya. Well, once again, thank you everybody for joining us. It was a pleasure. Thank you also Tiba and Rita for the facilitation of the groups. And yeah, see you around, I guess, through emails.
Great. Matthias, one final check. Did we record the session? Do you usually send the recording around?
Yeah, I'm going to send the recording around.
All right. Well, again, thank you very much, everyone. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.